Joining me now is Melania Trump's former chief of staff, our friend Stephanie Grisham. She was also White House press secretary under President Trump, and she is the author of I'll Take Your Questions Now, What I Saw at the Trump White House. Good to see you, Stephanie. And you worked so closely with Melania Trump. So what do you make of the timing of her announcement? And would the details of it been well planned in advance or spur of the moment? How would she approach that?
Good to see you, Alex, and thank you for having me. This would be something that she would absolutely have thought through. She doesn't do anything on the fly. I think you and I have talked about it before. She likes to follow a process, make sure everything is really perfect in all that she does, whether it's White House Christmas decor or giving remarks such as this. She also knows that when she speaks, it's rare and it makes a splash. And she would certainly know that this is something that would cause really big waves. So she didn't do it lightly. And just logistically, you know, it's my understanding that a press advisory went out the day before. So it was clearly a planned event.
So the president told MS Now and the New York Times he was unaware of what the first lady was going to say. White House staffers were also caught off guard, according to a White House official. So the big question to you, would Melania have not run details by her husband, especially on this topic?
Yes, she would have not run details past him. You know, I was asked when he said he had no idea the first time that I think he's had a few different answers now. But when he said he had no idea about it, the first time I called BS, and I would stand by that. I'm sure she said she was going to make remarks about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sure she has been very upset for a very long time about any ties to him, to Maxwell, and that he has certainly heard about it. It would not surprise me that he had no idea she was going to call on Congress to give the survivors a chance to speak under oath if they chose. I could see her keeping that part to herself. And the fact that the West Wing knew nothing was no surprise to me at all. When I was in the East Wing, we operated very separately from the West Wing. We never told them we were doing things, certainly the more high profile things that wouldn't please the West Wing. She made it very clear that our two sides of the house operated very independently, and we never needed to run it past them.
So if she didn't discuss it with him, which you say is quite plausible, could the president have convinced her not to do it? Or since she was clearly trying to clear her name of any association behind casual social interactions, would she go ahead regardless, even if he didn't want her to?
Oh, absolutely. Melania Trump does what she wants when she wants. I mean, I think that she made that pretty clear in the first administration when she called on a staffer for John Bolton's NSC to resign. I remember exactly where we were when we decided to do that, and he had no idea, nor was he happy about it. So, yes, when she feels strongly about something, she will do it. She will be the first to tell anybody that she's a very independent woman and that she and her husband have different opinions on many things, and this is clearly one of them. I would hope now he'll back his wife up and say that if these victims should want the opportunity, they should have the chance to speak to Congress and put their testimony into the forever record.
Well, on that front, Donald Trump did tell the Times that the First Lady was particularly upset by the rumor that Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to her husband, which she addressed at this press conference. Take a listen.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings.
So that meeting, is that a widely known story in her circle? And did you know that?
I knew that Epstein had never introduced them. She never spoke of Epstein the entire time I was around her, and that's for 6 years when you count the campaign. So I do believe, the story of how she and her husband met. Now, I thought it was kind of odd that she was doing a press conference of such magnitude in the White House Cross Hall at a podium just to talk about how she met her husband. I don't think that was a really big deal to people. I think that people by and large understand that in New York or Palm Beach social circles, as she said, you run into people, you might get your picture taken. I did think that was just a strange part of the press conference. I'm not sure if she saw something in a story somewhere or why she felt she had to get how she met her husband out there.
Well, we'll see what comes of it. And if Congress does go ahead and call
Let's
for
hope so.
the victims, yeah, we'll see. I think some of them want to. There's some who don't want to be put through that again.
Understood,
That said,
yeah.
we'll see how it all plays out. Totally. Thanks, my friend. Good to see you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Good to see you.